Hello there everyone and welcome back to another hero guide on the channel. Today we'll be talking about probably my least favorite saber, Yoda. Now obviously as always, for every hero guide we will be going over the base stats such as the health, damage, stamina, as well as the abilities which are Unleash, Presence, Dash Attack, as well as some star cards and general tips for GA, HVV and Showdown, as well as 1v1s. Now, starting off with Yoda's base health. We have 700 base HP with 250 base regen. Jedi Mentor basically brings it up to 756 base HP because of the 8% damage reduction. And then Presence, obviously, as we know, allows him to increase that maximum HP by 150. So there is that, as well as the health regen delay is 5 seconds. Now, Yoda is very survivable sometimes, but he is very easy to hit, and we'll get into that later on. Now, on to his damage. He deals 125 in the front, 150 in the back, which is not necessarily the weakest, but he's not very strong either. Opposing the dark side does increase that to 141 in the front, 166 in the back. But it is only against villains. It is not against troopers. So it is really useful in hero modes. It's just not exactly very useful in something like Galactic Assault. Now on to his stamina. We have 12 swings and 10 blocks. Lightsaber Mastery, I found, does either 14 or 15 swings. It allows him to do 14 or 15 swings, but does not increase his blocking stamina at all, only allowing him to still block 10 lightsaber hits. He does have the slowest swings per second in the game, no surprise there, by 1.6 swings per second, which is kind of sad, but it is what it is. That low swings per second allows him to be hit twice for every one swing if he gets parried. It's a rough life playing a Yoda. His stamina regen delay, however, is the fastest in the game with 1 second, as well as his regen speed also being up there with the fastest in the game, being 2.1 seconds. In my opinion, this doesn't really exactly help the balancing, but it allows him to basically never run out of stamina. Now, moving right along, we have his abilities. Now, first off is his left ability as Unleash. Now there is a lot of damage profiles, however, the minimum is 110 and the maximum is 190 if it's fully filled up. Now, weirdly enough, there is, I believe, a bug in the game where he can only deal 160 maximum damage with the Unleashed star card, which makes the minimum, basically the minimum range increased. So there is a little bit of a glitch there. Obviously, his force push does work differently from any of the other force pushes. It increases in the power and the range when absorbing either force attacks or blaster fire, and the build-up charge by blasters doesn't diminish, but the build-up charge by blocking force abilities as well as Palpatine's lightning does not diminish over time. So you will always have that charge there until you use it. Its cooldown is also 12 seconds. Now, Yoda's Presence is the next ability we were talking about. It is his middle ability. Now, this is a little bit more complicated than I would like it to be, but that's because there's a lot of different things that come on. So, obviously, by base, it gives him 150 health to Yoda as well as his surrounding heroes, as well as it does grant 70 extra health to his trooper allies around him, which obviously applies to games like Galactic Assault and Supremacy. It also, importantly, will break Yoda out of any stun or freeze or choke, any of that stuff, any immobilizing effect as it's known as. So that's very, very useful. It does not stack with any other health abilities. It used to a long time ago, but thankfully they removed that. Now, the Presence health does override either of the other health buffs, obviously Officer Command and Big Deal being the main ones. And obviously, importantly, Field of Force does allow him to increase the base health of Presence to 210 to himself as well as his heroes, and 130 to his trooper allies. Now, continuing right along with Presence, just some important things to note. Size matters not. allows you to regen 50% of your presence health after it's taken, which it does increase the actual health regen of yourself after your presence is used if you use Field of Force. So your increased presence health will allow you to regen more health after it's gone if you weren't using Field of Force, if that makes any sense. Now, the ability does last 8 seconds, however, Enduring Presence does allow it to last for 13 seconds. The cooldown is 20 seconds, but is increased to 33 with Size Matters Not. Now, an important thing to note is that Presence is currently glitched. Presence sometimes will bug out and will only affect Yoda in certain circumstances. Now, that isn't completely true because of how Presence works. Currently, when you use Presence, after you use it, sometimes it will lag behind and will go to the spot where you were last, and not actually affect Yoda and his allies around him at that current moment. So if you use Yoda towards your spawn, use presence towards your spawn, and your teammate sits by your spawn, and then you use it like across the map, it will still affect your teammate back in the spawn, because that's the current glitch with presence. So it's an interesting glitch. It sucks 90% of the time, but I digress. Now on to his right ability. We have Dash Attack. Now it does 85 damage per hit and does go through blocks and rolls. With rolls, it does obviously deal, I believe, 40% damage reduction with the opponent while they're in a roll, so that's important to note. As well as it does have 5 seconds per charge, like per use. But it does increase to 5.5 seconds with agility. And speaking of agility, it obviously Yoda's dash attack does 2 dashes per base, and then 3 dashes with agility. Alright guys, so next up we have my star cards and tips for Galactic Assault. Starting off with the star cards, we have Jedi Mentor, Agility, and Field of Force. Obviously this just allows Yoda to be survivable and maneuverable. Overall, hopefully just easier to use. Obviously, the other star cards are Jedi Mastery, Size Matters Not, and Earned It I Have. Now, the other 3 star cards I really wouldn't ever use. Earned It I Have just has to do with blaster range. Basically, increases the range, basically the fill up time when taking fire from blasters. Size Matters Not is a good card, but just I wouldn't recommend it in GA specifically. And Lightsaber Mastery is just basically for attacking stamina if you really find yourself in trouble with that. However, as I've mentioned many times before, attacking stamina or even just stamina in general really shouldn't be a massive issue in GA. Now on to some tips. So some general tips would be to be maneuverable with Yoda. Obviously, with the 3 dash attacks, you're able to be much more maneuverable, as well as don't really regular swing. He has a very low swing speed and can be basically destroyed very, very quickly. So use jump swings to your advantage. His jump swing is pretty nice once you get used to it. And honestly, use presence as much as possible. That'll just help your overall health and won't really dig into your health regen as much, or won't really dig into your regular health as much. So that's really the important things there. Yoda is very, very difficult to use, especially in comparison to the other heroes, or other Saber heroes actually, because of his low swing speed, his lower damage overall, as well as just he just doesn't feel as good as the other heroes, in my opinion. So Yoda is just a hard hero to use, and he takes some getting used to. So yeah. Now moving right along to an area I'm much more experienced with in comparison to GA is HVV with Yoda. HVV and Showdown with Yoda is something that I don't really do very often because honestly he's just not that great in those modes. Now with that said, it's not that he can't be effective. Presence is your biggest ally in these modes, as well as obviously using Opposing the Dark Side as a star card. Now, with the star card setup that I run, it is Jedi Mentor, Opposing the Dark Side, and Field of Force. However, I have seen Size Matters Not uh, over Jedi Mentor, as I also run that sometimes depending on how I'm feeling. Field of Force or Size Matters Not does actually affect your teammates too, although I'm not sure is exactly how much it really affects them, if it's full or half or what. However, all I know is that it does affect them. Now, with that said, Yoda is gonna feel sluggish. Um, he really will, and you have to use jump swings and dash attacks realistically to your fullest advantage. And make sure to use presence as often as you get it, because that will be crucially important. Now, obviously, another just important tip is to jump and use presence, as it does cancel out the animation, and that's just a significant help. It allows you to just get in the fight a lot faster, and just allows that to happen just so much quicker. So yeah, HVV and Showdown is not exactly where Yoda shines. I'd say he shines significantly more in something like GA, but again, it's hard to tell. I don't, Yoda is a very niche character for some people, including myself. So yeah, there is that. Now, obviously, we are moving on to the final, or not really final, but my favorite section of the video, which is 1v1s. I have gotten significantly better with Yoda over the past few weeks, just kind of playing with him, not a lot, but more than I used to. And Yoda is not very good in most modes against really any dark side hero. He lacks a significant amount of damage, his swing speed is slow, he can be hit through all of his abilities, but that doesn't mean you can't beat people. I have had consistent amount of success against people. Obviously, I don't win every time, at least with Yoda. Yoda is one of the more difficult ones to really win with a lot. But yeah, honestly, Yoda is an okay-ish character to use. Dash attack, however, use those to as much as you can, as those are your biggest advantage against people who are low, or even as a first attack. Yoda is incredibly agile, so you got to use that to your advantage. Realistically, use parries to your advantage and do hooks. Hooks with Yoda are very, very good, at least in my experience, because most people, and you don't even have to jump that high for it, you can actually over jump and still get the hook swing off because of how small Yoda is, and thus you're lower to the ground, and thus a higher jump really won't change the hit detection on the other person. So yeah, that is a very, very useful thing to do. Now, obviously, finally, we can go on to the most toxic emote. Our consensus is that is why you fail. Honestly, that is probably the most toxic emote that he has. However, realistically, all of his emotes are pretty toxic, at least in comparison to the other ones. Like, after you kill someone, you're like, my ally is the Force. Like, they're all fucking toxic as hell. Alright, and that will wrap it up for this hero guide for Yoda. I hope you guys enjoyed. Obviously, I didn't really end up doing too much as far as the speaking portion or the general tips, and even in 1v1s, because I can't really speak upon him a lot. This would be an area where probably Sharpshooter or Isaiah or other people who've played Yoda a lot more than me could probably speak upon better than me, but I digress, But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
I'm moving on. I'm so happy that it's over now. The pain is gone. I'm putting on my shades to cover up my eyes. I'm jumping in my ride. I'm heading out tonight. I'm solo. I'm Han Solo. I'm Han Solo. I'm Han Solo. Solo. Picking up my